Hello, my name is David Broussard, and we put a video out the other day based on, pretty much just kind of a little FYI video on blade safety, storing them correctly, different ways to store them. I got a lot of good comments back, and we appreciate that very much. One of the recurring questions that we got was, why is it necessary at times to flip the blade? And so I'm going to try to clarify that real quickly, and hope this makes sense to you. Different saws are going to cut either spinning clockwise or counterclockwise, depending on how that saw is set up. Almost all of the portable bandsaws or bandsaws that are set up in this fashion, this is an LT15 wide, are going to cut, they're going to spin counterclockwise. So if you look at your wheel over here or this one, it's going to be spinning this way, counterclockwise. Everybody knows what that is. What that's going to do is going to pull the blade, because we're cutting with the bottom of the blade, it's going to pull it through the log from left to right. If you're standing in front of the saw, it's pulling from the left across the log to the right, and it's expelling your dust right here, your sawdust shavings. The reason that's happening is because it's cutting with the bottom of this blade. The top of the blade is just simply running through and you see how it's pointed left to right, where our teeth are pointed the right way, okay? But there's another type of saw, and called a resaw, that we use quite a bit. In the particular place I was working before, we had a saw much larger and automated, more automated than this one, a LT50, cut the same exact way, almost exactly the same saw head, minus all the electronics and stuff. And we had a Morgan resaw. The sawmill sawed with the bottom of the blade. That's the part of the blade that would go through the log as you sawed beams or lumber or whatever. On the resaw, we sawed with the top of the blade. In other words, the bottom of the blade ran underneath the saw, and so when you went to cut on the resaw, there was a conveyor. The saw itself was stationary. This saw travels up and down, which doesn't really matter. But that saw was stationary, and you would put a beam. A lot of times we get beams from that were 100 and so years old, and people would want us to cut them down to maybe 1 inch for tabletops, for wall, wall decoration, whatever, or to make a bunch of, let's say, flooring out of old beams that they got out of some warehouse. So if we set it up on here and we crank the saw up, the saw also is moving from left to right, okay? Now it's spinning clockwise. On this particular saw, because we're using the top of the blade, it would, to be able to move from left to right across the beam or whatever we're cutting, it would be spinning clockwise. So that's one major thing. Is your saw spinning clockwise or counterclockwise? If it's spinning clockwise, which it would be, and we mounted the blade like this, we'd be cutting with the back side of the blade. That will not work. It'd be traveling like this, just dragging the back of it, making a horrible sound, blah, blah, blah. So in that instance, and these two saws both took 158-inch blades. We used the same exact blades on both saws, but before we mounted them, we would have to flip it for the resaw and then spin it. Once you flipped it and spun it, now it's traveling from left to right, and our teeth are pointed in the right direction. And it works perfectly, and it does a great job. It's very accurate. So that is why you can't just turn it around. If somebody asks, well, can't you just spin the saw blade around? Well, this is what you got when you spin a saw blade around. You got the back side of the blade, you're not going to do anything, right? So they're very easy to flip. You put one foot down, you roll it, you wrap your hands over, roll it, it flips, and you spin it. Now, if you look at the bottom, this blade is set up to use on my saw, which spins counterclockwise, and I cut with the bottom of the blade. But if I were going to use it on a resaw that cuts with the top of the blade that spins clockwise, I would have to flip it and spin it, and then my blade would be oriented in the right direction. I sure hope this makes some sense to you. Appreciate you very much. if you would, go and be kind and subscribe to our little page. Thank you so much.